Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of StarSound Speaks. This is your host, Irlianna of StarSound Astrology. So, episode 153, and we are talking about Mercury's entrance into the sign of Aries. So, it's been in the sign of Pisces for the last 3 weeks, and in just a few hours from the making of this video, it will be at 0 degrees of Aries, the Aries point. So that's a critical degree. It's a cardinal sign. It's about new beginnings. And Mercury in the sign of Mercury, of course, rules our thinking process and our communications, speeches, words, networking, all of those fabulous, merchants and selling, buying and selling, and all those really neat, cool mercurial things, the curious thinking mind. Before we get into that, I just want to just recap about this Venus's difficult enclosure the last few weeks. If you remember that in March, for the March astrology, I talked about that Venus was going to come into what we call an enclosure in ancient astrology. It's been a malefic enclosure, which means that the two malefic planets, Mars and Saturn, were sandwiched. Venus has been sandwiched in between these tough planets, Mars and Saturn, for the last few weeks. I mean, it's almost really the whole month of March, and that's not been easy. That's I've said it's like being sandwiched, like you're a peacemaker and you're sandwiched between two bullies. So obviously that has had a huge effect if you think about mundane astrology in the world, but the situation in the Ukraine. And we've seen it. There are actually 3 different events besides the Ukraine that really illustrate what this looks like. And so I think about this week, how we read about Julian Assange getting married in prison to, what was her name, Stella Morris. And here I've actually, let me just pull up in my screen. Hold on just a second here. Okay, I'm going to pull up here. Here's this picture, which I thought was really, really beautiful. And here it is. Here's the bride, and she's wearing a fabulous Venus. This is so Venus and Aquarius, right? It's a satin, looks like satin, a satin gown by Vivienne Westwood, right? A very prominent, obviously very prominent fashion designer, one of the world's top fashion designers, especially for like bridal gowns. And here it is in this very tailored, traditional kind of looking, right? It's Venus in Saturn's abode of Aquarius. So it's gray, Saturn is like about the color gray, and it's also, Saturn's also about tradition. So here you see the little boys, they have 2 children wearing kilts, and here she is, of course, just even getting married in Aquarius is about separation, right? So yeah, she's in a tough situation, getting married to a man who's in prison. Here she is. This was from Reuters website. Thank you, Reuters, and all credit to Peter Nicholls, the fabulous Reuters photographer. Stella Morris, here she is cutting her wedding cake. So it's a little cake, right? Everything is just truncated with Saturn's energy. And then where she departed the prison. So apparently, obviously, they did not allow photographers in there, which would have been another Venus, a tough Venus situation. So being brave and valiant despite all of that. So there's that. And there was one other one I wanted to show you, and here it is. Really, this was her wedding, the veil that accompanied the dress. There was writing on it, and it said like valiant, and all of these really strong like words of courage and valiance. And I thought, wow, isn't that pretty cool? And again, it just speaks volumes. And Venus in the sign of Aquarius with that sandwich and so the difficulty that love, Venus is the marriage planet, right? So love and social connections receiving quite a has a real, what is it, like running the gauntlet. And I think too of William and Kate. I don't know if you heard about Prince William and Kate Middleton. They went to the Caribbean on this tour, this like the Commonwealth, the British Commonwealth nations, like the Bahamas and Jamaica, but it was a real PR nightmare. Somebody did not call an astrologer. So what happened? They had all these people, I think it was in Jamaica and several places. They were in Belize. I think they even had to cut Belize out of the trip or whatever, but there were all these protests, of course, post-colonial, we're still angry, it's like, this was like a show of, and this is where Queen Elizabeth went like 70 years ago. They even had in one of the countries the same little black Jeep from the early 60s that Queen Elizabeth rode in when she was this young woman with her husband. And they pulled out the same old car and they're riding around waving, and he's wearing a military uniform, and people were like, meh, not interested. Here it is again, the social connection challenge. But in the sign of Aquarius, Saturn rules Capricorn and Aquarius. And so Saturn, that planet of limitation and authority, in the sign of Aquarius is more of a progressive thing, like, and being the outsider and being progressive and future oriented. So if it were in the sign of Capricorn, you would imagine that very, traditional bent and that more of a colonialist thing. But we're in the final stages of Pluto and Capricorn, right? This is like the upheaval and the cleansing and the healing of the colonialist, capitalist, and all that, elite rule pain body that has accrued over the centuries. And so to see everything in the, to see it in Aquarius, here it is, right? These people are like, no, we're not going there, like the old days when people would stand and cheer. I mean, to be honest, there were places and generally congenial crowds and all, but there were enough of them, not just one, but several countries where they were very angry, and they said, we're declaring independence from you guys, and we're moving to Barbados. Dropped Queen Elizabeth from their, they just decided to leave. It was like, okay, we're not a Commonwealth anymore because we said so. It's like, okay, there it is, that desire for freedom and independence and changing governments into a more freedom-oriented model is very Saturn and Aquarius. So them running into that PR nightmare, Venus enclosed by those malefics, right, wasn't very good. I think they probably learned a lot of lessons. And I think it also showed the world that I know in the New York Times, they were saying it was one example of how Queen Elizabeth and, the royal family as we have known them is losing its grip and this dominion over, it's just showing us, this progression away from these old ways. Yes, very, very clearly with all that. And I just think that in general, it also shows just how out of touch they are and have been, considering that they were just using the old playbook from previous generations, and it's like, no, it's not flying anymore. Ain't no more British Empire, that gig is up and it's long. That ship has long sailed, right? But the third example I love is Ketanji Brown Jackson with the Senate confirmation hearings. She is the first African-American woman in US history, about time, to be nominated to the Supreme Court. It's looking very good for her to actually get that approval. I mean, I kind of did a quick look at charts, but I'm just saying, of course, what did she have to do? She ran the gauntlet with Mitch McConnell and all of these, Ted Cruz and on a whole bunch of Republicans that were very, contentious. I mean, obviously they're from the opposite party, not a surprise. However, and then he comes out, was it yesterday, and said, oh, I'm not supporting Mitch McConnell, saying I'm not supporting this woman I'm not voting for her, right? Bark, 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 Mars and Saturn. But what's interesting and what's thankfully, this Venus enclosure is going to end. And this is what I wanted to finish up saying before I move into the Mercury and Aries part. Venus and Saturn, Venus is finally gonna, I think of her as like, like she's really contending with and muscling with Saturn. She's finally gonna, like, you know, and like, was it hopscotch? What is it called? When you when you were kids and somebody was like, would bend down and you put your hands on their back and you like hoist yourself up and jump over, you know? So like she's about to do that on Monday afternoon. Venus and Saturn are exactly, you know, at these critical degrees, 21 and 22 degrees Aquarius, very critical degrees. And it's like it's at a fever pitch with that contention and that seriousness and that challenge. They're both aligned right now. So it's going to be for a 10-minute period on Monday afternoon, 3:17 to 3:27 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So adjust your clocks accordingly. That's like this. That's exactly when they're going to be at 21 degrees, 44 minutes. Exactly, right? 10 minutes of like muscle. And then boom, she's finally going to be on the other side of that brute. And then by now, of course, Saturn is our friend in many instances, but it can be very challenging, as we know. But by 9:26 p.m. Eastern time, she will go to 22 degrees of, so she'll be 1 degree off. She'll finally move off that 21 degree point. And so Venus will be out from under that shackles that she's been for 3 weeks with Saturn. You know, the moon's going to be there too. So it's kind of like a little highlighter pen, you know, talk about women and assistants and, you know, making that separation. So that's going to be good, I think, for all three. Certainly a lot easier to contend with, you know, with, and I think about William and Kate, I'm sure there were lessons that they learned. And I think too, you know, with the marriage contract with Stella Morris and Julian Assange getting married so the birth chart, so to speak, of their marriage has that enclosure. But it's a real metaphor for grace under fire and standing strong and valiant in the face of a lot of deep societal, you know, challenges and the when you think about Saturn and Aquarius and like forging this new being being the outsiders, right? The conditions of the married and everything they stand for, and you know, and so it's a perfect metaphor of how that all plays out. And then Ketanji Brown Jackson, you know, it's again being strong and valiant in the face of all that, and the wedding veil, you know. Her wedding veil, just having Stella Morris's wedding veil, having those little words written all over it. I mean, it's so cool. So anyway, enough of that. Again, just really great to see astrology in visual, right? It's like they say, you know, don't tell me, show me. Well, astrology shows us. All right, on with the next. So now we are moving into Mercury and Aries. So just to give you, I'm going to give you a little bit of, you know, what that might look like, and also, you know, how to use it, like some really cool, and a Kazemi's coming a week from today. So I'll just touch base about all that and what we can expect. But before we do, I just wanted to say, you know, give us a little context. For the last few weeks, right, takes about 3 weeks for Mercury to go through a sign when it's in direct motion. And Mercury has been in the sign of Pisces. Well, Pisces, that's not an easy place for Mercury. Pisces means that Mercury has been in, quote, in exile. So exile is, yeah. Excuse me, just a second.
Oh, I missed. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I know it's a little late, but
oh yeah. Hey, you guys. So we remember last week, Myrtle. Do you remember Myrtle was in the previous? Oh my goodness. Hello.
Who's here? Who are you talking to?
Oh, we're talking to the world. Say hi to the world. We're talking to people.
Oh, those people still are on.
Oh,
the
yeah.
same people.
Oh, well, maybe some new ones.
Well, hello, everyone, but let me talk to her for 1 second, okay?
Oh, sure.
Listen,
yes.
I'm going to do a private session with her, but I need some advice right now, or else I won't be able to sleep.
Oh,
I went
sure.
for a job I got a great job last week, but then I went on the training and
Okay.
it was a 5-day training. And the second day, there was so much math. I saw all these numbers flying all over in the air and I was swirling around. I was getting dizzy because I couldn't figure it out, how to do a decimal and how to multiply this and everything. I almost fainted.
Oh my
And then-
goodness.
And then I had to raise my hand. It took so much courage. I raised my hand and I said, I'm sorry. I can't continue. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh my goodness.
And
I'm so
everybody-
sorry.
It's like the world came to a standstill. Everybody stopped and stared at me and I had to leave.
Oh.
So is this a good time for me to keep looking for a job?
Oh.
I really need a job.
Oh, yeah. No, actually, it's interesting that you mentioned that because, I'm just feeling a little sad or crying. But no, don't worry, it's going to work out. Here's the deal I was just funny that it's very magical with Mercury and Pisces, but it's in exile because Mercury is all about adding things up and data and calculators and all of that logical stuff. So in Pisces, it's not been easy. So I understand.
I couldn't figure anything out. There was
Yeah.
multiply this and put this decimal in and do that and add this and, multiply 20,000 numbers and
Oh yeah.
it was going crazy.
Oh yeah, no, don't. Yeah, it's not. I'm sorry. Oh,
So-
that's
so it's
I'm
okay.
sorry. Oh yeah, I'm so sorry.
It passed.
Oh yeah, don't worry. Yeah, because it's going out, and tomorrow is a new day, new beginning, and you don't have to worry about being in a fog about all those numbers. What's nice is that you can take the dreams that you've had these last few weeks. You must have really been dreaming big. And then take that with you because Mercury is going into Aries. I was just telling everybody on the podcast, Mercury is moving into the sign of Aries. So this is for you to be strong and brave and stand up and speak your truth. And your computing brain is back again. It's going to be a lot easier to do math if you have to do math.
Well, I don't want to do any more math. I like math, but not like that. I really want to be an actress and a model.
An
So
actress.
that's my dream. So
Oh,
do you-
fabulous.
we're going to do a chart and I won't take up any more of your
Oh,
time.
no, that's great. You just happen to illustrate what I was talking about. Isn't that magical?
Well,
See?
You mean about having a hard time at this time?
Yeah.
So is everybody having a hard time
Oh,
at
yeah.
this time?
Oh yeah, I would imagine that it was very hard to concentrate with Mercury and Pisces to have that left brain so yeah, I think everybody went through what you were going through. It's just not as easy as
Such a relief. I
yeah,
thought it
don't
was just me.
Yeah, you have to forgive yourself. It's okay, It's
Oh,
really
thank you
okay.
so much. Thank you
Oh,
so much.
yeah.
We're going to do a private session,
Oh,
but
yeah, I
not
can't-
now.
Yeah,
I
no,
know
I'd love to do your chart. Yeah, let me know how I'd love. Yeah, you're so much fun. Are you kidding?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I hear a cat. I better go see. if
Yes,
there's a
my
cat.
cat's outside. I think.
Thank you, folks. Thank you for lending her for me.
Oh, you're funny. Yeah.
Bye bye.
Oh, good to see you.
I even wore my lucky lipstick and it didn't work.
Lucky lipstick. Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, well, thanks for coming. Thank you, Myrtle.
Good night. Good night. Thank you
Yeah,
so
good
much.
to see you. Okay. Oh my goodness. Well, and my cat is calling me and it's always a little crazy in those last few minutes of Mercury or of a planet in a sign, things building to its. I was just thinking about her, right? And there she is. Anyway, so back we are to yes, Mercury in Aries. So yes, it's losing that difficult exile, right? It's out of exile at 3:44 a.m. Eastern time, Sunday morning, March 27th, and it will be in the sign of Aries until April 10th. So yes, that's good news. However, it's still fighting. Mercury is our voice, right? And our speech and our communication. Now, in the sign of Aries, that's Mars's temple. So it's like, hey, it's like having come out of the fog and having, well, you could say out of being, well, in like Myrtle's case, she was talking about not feeling comfortable and confident with the tabulation, right? So Mercury's all about data and tabulating and results and things like that, and measure, she was measuring. And so, yeah, it's difficult. However, the good news about Mercury and Pisces is there's a lot of dreams, that our ideas and our dreams and our visions, it was bringing that up. So now we get to, like I was saying, take that forward and make something happen and get into action. So it is a transition, and it's like the baton is carried to the next sign. So it takes all the things that we learned in these last few weeks about our dreams and our thoughts about them and our attitudes and our connections and our thinking process, in a more dreamy state. But then it rolls over, like kind of like minutes on your cell phone, right? They roll over from one month to the next, and so from one sign to the next. But I will say, because the sun is very close to Aries right now, it's what we call under the beams. Mercury is under the beams of the sun. It's been under the beams since the middle of March, about March 16th. It's not going to be out with its own voice until was it April 17th. Now it'll be in Taurus by then, but that's an important thing to notice, because when a planet is under the beams of the sun, it's like, it's kind of hard, especially at Mercury. It's like, where's my voice? Or I want to speak up and I want to be courageous. And yes, and it might be that we're drowned out by, what does the sun represent? The father or authority figures, or or it can be an excess excess, hopefully not a burnout of one's voice, but it can be like overdoing it. And so we want to just be really, we might have to be more patient, and knowing that this process is not forever, right? So we just keep standing and being patient for being heard. We don't certainly want to be combative. That would be a low end, truly low end of Mars, is the combative warrior that's trying to cut people down, or being like the rebel without a cause. That's an unproductive use of our Mercury in Aries. However, the good news is that it's where we get to plan and direct our goals for any kind of business, communication, writing. Mercury's the god of writing, but also I think about retailing, buying and selling, so we can certainly shift gears and see new projects and get into action on projects regarding in that arena. Regarding business, Aries is always like the businessman of the zodiac, right? Getting things done. So getting that voice loud and into this world versus, the dream world that was Pisces. I think too, it's like we might have experienced some deception or fraudulent or deceptive people, or sly, like slick salesmen, with Mercury and Pisces. If you had anybody that sold you a bill of goods and you're like, oh, I thought this was really great, and then you realize, oh no, so this is kind of like when with it in Aries, we could be seeing that it's really wow, what just happened, so it's a place where we, get more clarity about those things. I would say my advice is, not to be pushy. Pushy in a healthy way, but not to be like overexerting our will on someone else. We don't like that for somebody to do it to us. So we have to make sure that we're not restless and impulsive and patient in waiting for our voice to be heard. When Mercury comes out of under the beams, it's technically called heliacal rising, right? So Helios, the sun, rising away from those beams of the sun. I always like the example of, the movie star on the red carpet, and, that light is shining and you happen to be standing next to them, and all the paparazzis got their cameras trained on this fabulous movie star, but of course you can't be heard. People are listening to the movie star. But once we step away from that glow of that movie star and all that hubbub and excitement, it is like, oh, we can be seen, we can be heard for who we are. That brings me to the final little piece of this podcast, and that is there is one window when it is close to the sun, the magical Cazimi window. And that is when the sun and the planet, in this case, Mercury will be Cazimi again with the sun. It hasn't been there since January. Now it's back, Cazimi with the sun, which means it's this window, it's kind of like an eye of a hurricane. If you can imagine, to get to the eye of the hurricane, you've got to go through all this tumult, right? The high winds and all that Sturm und Drang, as they say in German. And then then you get this peaceful little enclave, and it's like as if, the divine is speaking to you. So in this case, it would be, the sun in Mars's temple. It's like this tough warrior is giving us a pep talk on how we can be strong and how we can endure and how we can have vitality and how we can stop fighting and being a rebel and being alone, and how we can stop cutting people off who love us. And use what is that Bible saying? You make your sword into a plowshare, so instead of like cutting people down with words, how about building them up, and creating something lasting and beautiful and full of light rather than destruction. So construction versus destruction, so that we get that divine pep talk a week from today, Saturday, April 2nd. And that's going to be, depending on what school of astrology you believe this to be, but for sure, it's about 12 hours where it's in this super, super, super sacred window. And that would be 7:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time till about, rewind, 1:04 p.m. Saturday afternoon to 1 a.m. on technically Sunday morning, again, all Eastern times. And in that exact precision lineup, it's 7:10 p.m. So it's that 12-hour gap from the Saturday afternoon to early Sunday morning after midnight, where we can do, we can have that magical connection with the divine. Whoever your favorite warrior saint is, or divine being, I think maybe like Kali Durga, or Kali Durga, Kali Ma, just that tough, tough as nails, like, get out of the way, kind of remover of obstacles. Ganesha's, remover of obstacles. St. Jude in the Catholic tradition, is like whatever's in the way, and it's getting that incredible download with the divine, a cosmic download of it in our mind. And it's a process where we really get some really important insights about what it takes to be strong. So that's coming, that's Saturday. Again, that's the very narrow window of that. In the medieval tradition, they looked at medieval astrology. They narrowed it to 16 minutes of arc. And so that would be 1:04 p.m. to 1 a.m. But if you are in the school of let's give it a degree on either side, we actually have a little more time. It's actually the whole weekend. So that would start Friday, April 1st, 8:10 p.m. Eastern time to Sunday afternoon, April 3rd, 5:23 p.m. So, hey, we're all busy, we have busy lives. Use whatever works for you, whatever calls to you. If you have, we can use the whole weekend to celebrate with that. But for sure, this is these are like built in. The universe gives us these built-in windows where we have these direct connections. Operators are standing by. The divine can hear us, and we can the divine always hears us. Can we hear it? The divine. Well, the veils are much more available in those magic windows. Of course, right now we've got the fantastic, outrageous, once in a lifetime that we'll see in our lives, Jupiter lining up with Neptune in the sign of Pisces. So that is also a very much, the thinnest veils we might ever see, so it's good stuff here. I will be talking more about that in maybe the next one for sure. Coming up in the next few weeks is going to perfect around April 8th to 12th, that conjunction, and has huge implications for us in our lives. So anyway, enough of that. And that's all I wanted to share. Thank you so much for listening. And I hope you have a fabulous, use that Mercury in Aries well. My advice is, avoiding that inflammatory rhetoric, and use this to move ahead and create wonderful projects and growth. Be courageous, be valiant. Don't be the rebel. Perhaps, we can ask ourselves, what's my attitude on separation? Separation is sometimes a good thing, that we have to do that to stand up and draw a boundary. Other times separation is just for alienation and isolation, because if it's our ego, if our ego is driving and let's face it, Aries is the most egoic, it's the ego archetype. So we have to make sure that we're not rebelling because out of ego. And if there is a rebellious streak in us, is it really, where is that coming from? And let's not make it difficult to connect with others. So that's my advice for Mercury and Aries. Anyway, that's all for now. I hope you enjoyed this. Please do leave a comment below, or drop me a line, Irlianna at StarSoundAstrology.com. Love to hear from you all. It's always a joy. So yay, and like, share, and subscribe, and that always helps the algorithm. So yay, there's my Mercury and Aries, ask for that. Stand up and ask. All right, my dears, mwah, we love you all. Yay, and have a fabulous time, and we'll see you next time. This is Irlianna Samsara, StarSound Speaks, StarSoundAstrology.com. Thank you all for listening. Namaste.